Hey guys, so just getting right into it, Shinso's back. Yeah, my favorite secondary character in My Hero Academia is back. And he's not only sporting a new ISO aesthetic look, but as we see the baseline of this episode in this new arc we're headed into, he's basically competing in Class 1A and B's joint training exercise as a means to move up to the hero course. And let's just break this whole setup down for a minute, because as a manga reader, even though this arc has just started, I already have a vastly different opinion of it. Well, pretty much now than I did when I first reading it. Like, it's one of those things where when I was first reading this arc, I liked it. I really liked it. But looking back on it now, there's a lot of underlying context and just kind of a somber feel to it that really makes me just kind of that really just makes me look back and say this is from the final moment where we're gonna see like these characters in this kind of setting. Like it is very much like that. But first up, so just breaking it down. First off, Shinzo's new look, and at first I had thought, and at first when at first when I pretty much saw when I saw this look when I first saw this and the kind of look that pretty much Shinzo was sporting, my initial first thought was that Horikoshi was this was Horikoshi's way of building up Shinzo as like protege or sidekick in the future. Oh, but how naive I was, and how little did I know at the time of what this setup actually meant. And while I won't give away too much for the sake of anime onlys, let's just say that Shinzo's new look in itself kind of puts him in, honestly, a prime position to become Aizawa's successor in the future. And I know I'm already giving away a lot already, probably by saying that, but let's just say there's, again, it's pretty much something I really should have picked up on, like pretty much the moment it happened. Like when it comes to when it comes to Horikoshi, the one thing I've learned when it comes to his foreshadowing is the man always delivers in some of the most heartbreaking ways. Let's put it that way. Um, it I now the other thing to talk about is the setup itself with the joint training between Class 1A and Class 1B, and pretty much Shinzo like pretty much taking part in both the Class A and Class B team. Because one thing, again, going off what I just said, one thing you'll find going forward is that on the surface level, this whole arc will pretty much come across will come across as pretty much filler. It is going to come across as a very filler arc kind of setup. But the one caveat I really have to stress with this arc, even if you feel this way that this arc is filler and whatnot, is soak in as many of the character interactions and just seeing these characters in this environment as much, and just try and appreciate them in this environment for the little time we're going to spend in this arc. Because looking back on this arc, it makes me realize how much this is basically a calm before the storm. A storm where once it hits, everything goes to shit, and things you kind of take for granted in the story are about to completely fall apart. Slowly, mind you, but it's good. It's happening already with just this arc, honestly. Um, with that said, another thing to obviously talk about is we see Izuku meets with All Might in order to discuss his vision, and honestly, this is one of those times where I should have been paying more attention to All Might's reactions than I probably should have the actual conversation. I mean, the conversation itself is important, but and I know it's kind of a strange thing to say, but the thing is, All Might's reactions to what Izuku is telling him say so much about what All Might knows in terms of what's going on. And the best part of this conversation is that yes, while it does pertain to the idea of Izuku like from getting more control over One for All in the usual sense, All Might's reactions show he not only knows something more is going on, but that things he's studied about One for All are slowly being confirmed. Like you can see it in his eyes. This even what he comes across, you can tell that All Might has actually studied a lot about pretty much the quirk of One for All itself, and you can just see just through All Might's reactions that everything he's studied about One for All is slowly being confirmed, and the culmination of what all these conversations are leading to suddenly adds like and what I've known what's happening in the manga right now, it all adds up a lot more simply just through paying attention to these reactions from All Might. And this whole conversation in general really just proves he not only knows way more than what he's letting on, but he knows what the journey from here, where the journey from here is going to take Izuku and One for All. Like he knows where the pretty much end game of pretty much One for All is going to lead. Um, now now, tracking back to the joint training itself, there is something interesting to talk about, despite majority of the actual combat happening near the bookend. There's actually a very interesting contrasting dynamic already happening between Class 1A and Class 1B, and it's very small if you're not paying attention. But if you already notice, like look for Class 1B's like actions during this whole training already are already coming across as far more focused and precise on a punch based strategic level compared to what Class 1A is doing. Like Class 1A is just like in a lot of what you can tell already from Class 1A is that they're just kind of winging it in a way. Like they're trying to think of strategies on the fly, whereas with Class 1B, you can kind of tell that they've already got a strategy planned out. And I'll get more into this next week, but let's just say the key theme of this arc is collective strengths and weaknesses. And it's something that for as much as I still don't like the guy, it kind of, like what's going on now, it weirdly kind of ties into the aftermath of the hero license exam arc, specifically the single encounter between Class 1A and Class 1B and as well as Monoma's gloating. Like it might have been annoying to hear in order to hear from hearing in order to hear like the guy gloat so many times, but Monoma did bring up a very interesting point that is coming into play in this arc now. Um, and in a lot of ways, All Might already does kind of give away the ghost as to what the difference between Class 1A and Class 1B already is. Um, Also, it's probably because I'm such a fan of Shinso, but I like how even though he's being given this chance to transfer into the hero course, he's treating it as just a singular opportunity. So, because of that, he recognizes, okay, until I actually get my foot in the door, everyone is an obstacle. It's like one of those times where, or despite not really having it's one of those times where despite not having really seen him since the sports festival, this moment with Shinzo's reintroduction really shows how much he's grown and learned since then, and that's not even taken into account his new sort of ability with that mouth guard, which is he can now brainwash people by mimicking a recognizable person's voice. And honestly, looking at this new setup with pretty much Shinso's got, I dare say Shinso's classmates were pretty much dumb as fuck. Like if they thought he was scary before with that power, like this little thing of being able to mimic a person's voice, that makes him way more dangerous than he ever was during the sports festival. Like just being able to mimic a person's voice, that I think shows the real potential of Shinso's power, and it is legitimately terrifying. Like being able to mimic a person's voice and just confuse the fuck out of people, in order to just, and not even to just brainwash, but to just use that ability in order to confuse the fuck out of people. that is a dangerous power, and that I wouldn't want. That honestly I wouldn't even want. That I even wouldn't really wish upon any villains, frankly. Um, and I, and now I don't even talk. I don't often talk about pacing all that much because I do worry I might end up repeating myself. But I really have to mention here the pacing of this episode, and someone mentioned this on the Crunchyroll site, that the pacing was definitely faster than usual. Yet surprisingly, and yet the most shocking thing is that the surprisingly anime onlys are going to be shocked to learn that it barely skipped out on anything from the manga. Like it still went page for page, but it's kind of one of those things where it's during this point in the story where there are more than a couple chapters released for this part that were actually shorter than your standard 19 to 20 page chapters. Like this is at the point where he got where Horikoshi, I don't know what was going on with him at the time, if it was just that he couldn't keep up with the workload or whatnot. But this is around the time where he started releasing like first 13 and pretty much 15 page chapters of My Hero Academia. So the chapter load was a little decreased since then. But yeah, but it's but so that's I think part of the reason as to why the episode itself like seems so fast is because of these chapters were a lot shorter. Although I think it also gave the animators just a bit of the studio and the animators a bit of an excuse in order to expand on maybe just a few things here and there. But so they still used it to the advantage, I think. But yeah, guys, that's all I got for this review. Enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe. I mean, Twitter, Analyst, Facebook, Analyst, or Crunchyroll. Death Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, guys.